Shocking new evidence is puzzling astronomers worldwide. Mysterious interstellar visitor 3I Atlas behaves unlike any comet seen before.
NASA didn't expect anything unusual when the latest batch of telemetry came in from 3I Atlas, the interstellar visitor that has already turned the scientific community inside out.
And based on what you were describing, this could soon be the biggest story in the world. Literally the biggest story in the universe.
For months, the mysterious object had been drifting on its projected trajectory, glowing faintly, rotating slowly, and behaving more or less like an icy, elongated comet from another star system. Before we move forward, like the video and subscribe to the channel. But then, in the early hours of Monday morning, the alarms went off inside NASA's JPL Mission Control. Not the routine alerts, but the top-tier ones reserved for only the most extreme, unexpected events. The kind that send engineers sprinting and force supervisors to issue emergency protocols. Stay with me through the last minute of this video, because the conclusion raises a question no single researcher can answer alone.
I'm in a mothership that instead of slowing down and actually visiting planets or going near them, it actually releases probes.
When you see the final finding, drop your insight in the comments. I'm genuinely curious where you stand. The data looked impossible. Spectral signatures were suddenly drenched, overwhelmed, with the unmistakable chemical fingerprints of water vapor. Not the gentle sublimation you'd expect from a slowly warming comet, but a violent, sustained jet of water erupting from one side of the object like a broken fire hydrant blasting into the vacuum of space. The amplitude of the signature surged so fast that the system flagged it as a malfunction. But the backup instrument flagged the same thing. Then a third. Then the radiometric sensors began to pick up ice crystals expanding outward in a growing plume large enough to temporarily saturate NASA's observation channels. Within 20 minutes, NASA's internal message networks had already fired off red-level notices. 3I Atlas was undergoing a catastrophic outburst. Something had ruptured. Something had opened. Something was now gushing material at a rate never before observed in an interstellar object. Even Oumuamua's bizarre acceleration and the dustless behavior of Borisov had not prepared scientists for this kind of explosive activity. The first assumption was thermal stress. As 3I Atlas moved closer to the sun, volatile ices might heat up and crack. Comets do that. Cryovolcanic eruptions can happen. But none of those scenarios came anywhere close to explaining the sheer volume of water being blasted into space. Early estimates suggested the jet's output was comparable to a small terrestrial river. Hubble images refined that to something even more shocking. 3I Atlas appeared to be venting a column of water nearly 500 kilometers long, expanding outward and forming a bright, reflective halo around the object. It didn't take long for the internet to catch on. Amateur astronomers noticed the sudden brightening even before NASA made its first public comment. Message boards exploded. Social media trended the object's name within minutes. Theories ranged from far-fetched to outright cinematic, with some claiming the object had been damaged by a solar event, some claiming it was hollow, and others, emboldened by Avi Loeb's past statements, suggesting the eruption might not be natural at all. But inside NASA, the atmosphere was tense for very different reasons. The problem wasn't just the eruption. It was what the eruption implied. To spew that much water, the interior of 3I Atlas had to contain far more liquid than any previously known interstellar object. Comets typically hold ice. This was liquid. That meant heat. It meant internal pressure. It meant some kind of cryogenic chamber, or something functioning like one. Instruments kept detecting unusual symmetry in the water jet's periodic pulses. It wasn't smooth. It wasn't random. It came in bursts, repeating every 41 seconds with uncanny consistency. Natural eruptions don't hold perfect timing like that. Even geysers on Earth fluctuate. Even cryovolcanoes on distant moons stagger, wobble, or shift. NASA convened emergency meetings, pulling in researchers from the Planetary Defense Coordination Office, the astrobiology program, and even military aerospace analysts. The fear wasn't that the water posed any danger. Earth was nowhere near the jet's path. The fear was that something inside 3I Atlas had activated. The object hadn't behaved like this in months of observation. Nothing in its temperature, reflectivity, or spectral profile suggested a pressurized cavity ready to burst. And certainly nothing suggested a rhythmic pulse. A second concern emerged. The outburst seemed to be altering the object's trajectory. Observers noticed a measurable shift, small but accelerating. The force of the water ejection was pushing the object like a miniature thruster. Within hours, orbital models had to be rewritten twice. What was once a predictable glide through the inner solar system was now a path with slight deviations that compounded over distance. It wasn't heading toward Earth, but the acceleration was unexplained. Scientists had calculated the mass of the object months ago. The force required to affect it this noticeably didn't match the energy we were seeing. Unless the jet wasn't the only force at work. Rumors leaked that NASA's magnetometer readings had picked up a subtle but distinct electromagnetic signature emanating from the object. Not static, not noise, a modulated hum, repeating, coordinated, and most disturbingly, growing stronger as the water jet intensified. The signature resembled something close to the low-frequency emissions of a machine, a failing one, perhaps, or one being forced into activity after a period of dormancy. The emergency alert classification was immediately upgraded. Then came the strangest observation of all. When the sun's light crossed the expanding fountain of water, the plume refracted in a way that suggested particles suspended within it. Not dust, not rocky debris, something gelatinous, microscopically filament, moving in tangled clusters. The chemistry team almost dismissed it as sensor scatter until more precise instruments confirmed it. The water contained complex organic chains. That's when the word biological appeared in the internal logs. NASA wasn't ready to say it publicly. They weren't even ready to say it internally without qualifiers, disclaimers, and 5 layers of uncertainty. But the implication hit everyone at the same time. If the object had internal liquid water, internal heat, internal pressure, and now organic compounds being sprayed into space, then one of 2 things had to be true. Either this object was storing life-forming chemicals inside an interstellar freezer, or something inside it was metabolizing. The eruption might not have been an accident. It might have been a release. Speculation skyrocketed. Astrobiologists wondered if the object carried extremophiles, organisms capable of surviving deep cold and vacuum. Others wondered if 3I Atlas had been harboring a microbial ocean beneath an insulating crust, similar to Europa or Enceladus, but traveling between star systems. That scenario alone would be groundbreaking. It would mean interstellar panspermia by natural cryogenic transport was not just possible, but happening right in front of us. But another camp, the one already familiar with Avi Loeb's research, proposed a more unsettling possibility. What if the interior cavity wasn't natural at all? What if 3I Atlas wasn't a comet but a derelict object from another civilization, its internal coolant rupturing after millions of years of drifting asleep? The repetitive 41-second pulse of the water jet could be the result of an automated pressure system failing, or rebooting, or trying to recalibrate. One detail fueled their theory. The jet wasn't just spewing water in a random direction. It was gradually aligning, tightening its angle, becoming more directed, as though compensating for the object's rotation. Natural vents don't do that. Mechanical nozzles do. NASA kept quiet while they collected more data, but some analysts inside the agency were already whispering what nobody wanted to admit. The jet's rhythm had shifted slightly, by a fraction of a second, each time 3I Atlas adjusted its orientation. It was following a feedback pattern. The object's rotation rate had begun to stabilize, like a spacecraft correcting its attitude. Suddenly, the water wasn't the main story. The main story was that the object might be steering itself. Astronomers in Chile, Hawaii, Spain, and South Africa trained every instrument they had onto the evolving plume. The James Webb Space Telescope's distant infrared imaging began returning ultra-precise readings of the plume's molecular temperature. The water wasn't freezing instantly. Something was keeping it warm even after expulsion. That meant the internal compartment, whatever it was hotter than the surface. Energy was being generated, not just stored. Inside NASA's emergency briefing rooms, the talk had shifted from eruption to activation. Even the resolutely conservative scientists had to admit that the object was behaving in ways no natural comet ever had. The burst was too intense, too cyclical, too synchronized with rotation and electromagnetic activity. And now the plume's shape was beginning to develop a faint curvature, as if being guided by internal flow channels rather than chaotic fissures. If the object was natural, it was the strangest natural body ever observed. If it was artificial, it was the most significant discovery in human history. NASA's final concern, and the reason for the emergency alert designation, was trajectory modification. The water jets were increasing in power, but that wasn't the worrying part. The worrying part was that the object's path was no longer drifting randomly from the recoil. Instead, the changes appeared to be converging toward a new, stable outbound vector. It was no longer being pushed, it was choosing. Some speculated it was simply stabilizing after an internal failure. Others thought the eruption might have triggered dormant navigation systems. A few even suggested it could be responding to sunlight, reactivated by heat after millions of years of interstellar darkness. But one chilling observation overshadowed all others. The water jet's pulses were beginning to slow down, like a system completing a startup sequence. The electromagnetic hum was growing clearer, and the plume, once chaotic, was now sharply defined, as though the nozzle had repaired itself. NASA has not issued a public emergency because 3I Atlas poses no threat to Earth. But internally, the alert level remains elevated for one simple reason. Something inside the object turned on, and no one knows what the next stage will look like. Whether the jet will shut down, ramp up, or transition into something entirely different. Whether the object is stabilizing for long-distance travel or preparing for another burst. Whether it is simply a natural cryovolcanic phenomenon, or the awakening of something older and more complex than humanity has ever encountered. For now, all eyes remain locked on the plume, the pulses, and the unexplained hum echoing from deep within 3I Atlas. If this is a malfunction, it is the most sophisticated one imaginable. If it is activation, then we may be witnessing the first moments of an interstellar machine waking up after an unimaginable journey. And NASA, despite its silence, is treating it exactly like that. And that leads to the questions we're all asking right now. Is this eruption a natural cryogenic vent or the sign of an ancient mechanism rebooting? Why is the jet becoming more directed and synchronized with the object's rotation? Could the organic material inside the water plume hint at life, primitive or engineered? And if the trajectory changes are intentional, what exactly is 3I Atlas preparing for? What are your thoughts? Let me know in the comments. And don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel so we can explore space together.